Guess what? Japan's national sport is a lot more than two giant men slapping each other in diapers. It's religion, it's ritual, it's political theater, wrapped in silk belts and sacred salt. And it has over 1,300 years of written history, plus a much older mythic origin story that involves actual gods throwing hands. So let's belly flop into the sacred ring and find out why being big in Japan once meant divine power. This is Guess What?, where even the heaviest topics have a little bounce to them. Sumo didn't start as a sport. It started as a prayer. The earliest records go back to the 3rd century AD, when sumai, literally striking each other, was part of Shinto rituals. Farmers wrestled in rice fields to entertain the gods and ensure a good harvest. In the Kojiki, Japan's oldest chronicle, the gods themselves wrestled to decide control of the islands. The heavenly deity Takemikazuchi fought the earthly god Takeminakata, and when he won, Japan became his domain. So yeah, technically, the first sumo match was divine colonization. Over centuries, these ritual bouts became performances at the imperial court. The first recorded official sumo match took place in 642 AD, when the Empress Kogyoku invited wrestlers to entertain visiting Korean diplomats. Because nothing says diplomacy like sweaty men body slamming each other in front of royalty. By the Heian period, 794 to 1185, sumo had gone mainstream. The court hosted annual tournaments called Sumo Sekie, where wrestlers competed before the emperor himself. But this wasn't the kind of sumo you see today. There were no weight classes, no time limits, no rules against punching or eye gouging. It was basically MMA in silk loincloths. Eventually, the samurai class adopted sumo as a form of military training, testing balance, power, and aggression. It was so rough that by the 15th century, the shogunate had to step in and say, "Okay, maybe less stabbing, more pushing." That's when sumo became codified, with a ring, dohyo, referees, and standardized rules. By the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, sumo went pro. Wrestlers performed in public arenas for paying crowds. Tournaments raised money for temples and shrines, making sumo both sacred and commercial. Basically the world's first pay-per-view religion. Sumo might look like two guys colliding, but every single move is loaded with meaning. The ring itself is a sacred space, purified before every match. The referee wears robes patterned after Shinto priests. Wrestlers throw salt to cleanse evil spirits, and probably a few bacteria. Before each bout, wrestlers stomp the ground to scare away demons. The entire ritual can take longer than the actual fight, which might last 3 seconds. Every detail is symbolic. The roof above the ring mimics a Shinto shrine. The white papers hanging from it represent lightning, a nod to the god of storms. Even the rikishi's top-knot hairstyle? Modeled after samurai. Because what's more intimidating than a 350-pound man who looks like he's about to recite a haiku and break your spine? In sumo, bigger isn't just better, it's sacred. Sumo wrestlers, or rikishi, train to maintain a massive physique that combines fat, muscle, and surprisingly solid cardio. Their goal isn't to be shredded, it's to be immovable. The legendary chanko nabe diet, a giant stew of chicken, fish, tofu, and noodles, can hit 10,000 calories a day. And yet, it's not gluttony, it's strategy. A top rikishi's body fat acts as armor, cushioning blows and lowering their center of gravity. Their balance training is unreal. Many can drop into full splits or cartwheel out of a fall. So yeah, they might look like walking futons, but most of them could probably outsprint you in a 40-yard dash. Sumo training camps are like monasteries. except the monks eat non-stop and body slam each other before breakfast. Sumo is also about hierarchy, and it's brutal. Every wrestler belongs to a stable, heia, run by a retired champion called an oyakata. The youngest wrestlers, the jonokuchi, do the chores, cooking, cleaning, even washing their seniors' hair. The higher you rise, the more privilege you get. Better food, your own room, and eventually, your own kimono with your name embroidered in gold. At the very top sits the yokozuna, the grand champion. They don't just fight well, they have to live like demigods. One scandal, one drunken outburst, and you're out. Retirement from sumo often involves cutting the wrestler's top knot in a ceremony so solemn you'd think someone died. In a way, someone did, their former self. Despite its sacred roots, sumo has had more scandals than a daytime soap opera. In the 1990s and 2000s, the Japan Sumo Association was rocked by accusations of match fixing, hazing, drug use, and even ties to the Yakuza. In 2007, a teenage apprentice named Tokitaizan died from beatings during disciplinary training, exposing a culture of abuse hidden behind ritual formality. The 2010s brought match-fixing texts, wrestler expulsions, and a major image crisis. For a while, sponsors pulled out, and Japan debated whether its national sport had lost its soul. But sumo, like its wrestlers, proved hard to knock down. The sport reformed, new rules, more oversight, and an uneasy balance between tradition and transparency. Only sumo could combine Yakuza rumors, ritual purification, and salt throwing into the same press release. Today, sumo's not just Japanese, it's global. Foreign wrestlers began joining in the late 20th century, bringing new styles and, occasionally, controversy. Akebono, from Hawaii, became the first non-Japanese yokozuna in 1993, standing 6 feet 8 inches, 500 pounds, and moving with surprising grace. Since then, Mongolian wrestlers like Asashoryu, Hakuho, and Teru no Fuji have dominated, blending sumo's ceremony with their own wrestling traditions. This caused some cultural tension. Purists feared the sport was losing its Japanese spirit. But it also saved sumo from decline by making it truly international. Today, you can find sumo tournaments in Los Angeles, Paris, and even Brazil, because nothing brings people together like two giants in thongs slapping each other respectfully. At its heart, sumo isn't about violence, it's about control. You win not by hurting your opponent, but by forcing them to lose balance. That's why sumo isn't scored by points or knockouts. It's about presence, posture, and poise. Each match is a microcosm of life. Two forces clash, one yields, and respect is never lost. It's strength without cruelty, discipline without hatred. In a way, that's the most Japanese thing ever. So from divine rituals to televised slaps, from courtly entertainment to international sport, sumo has wrestled its way through centuries without ever really losing its soul. It's proof that tradition can evolve, even when it's 400 pounds and covered in baby powder. That's today's episode of Guess What? If you enjoyed stepping into the dohyo with me, hit subscribe, because next time, who knows what we'll uncover. Until then, stay curious. And if you ever find yourself in Japan, bow first, then bring salt.